And we are on. Good evening. This is Rob Bell. You're watching Getting the Record Straight. This is the Truth to Power segment. And it is, let me see, we're at Thursday already. Thursday, and I hope you're staying safe. We're not out of the woods yet, by a long shot, actually, with this coronavirus. So keep your mask on, keep your distancing, and all of that good stuff. It's May the 7th, and as I said, we're still dealing with this thing. And by the way, I have a great friend and a guest who I'm going to interview very shortly. But before I do want to mention that the case in Georgia, Ahmaud Arbery, which I've been talking about for a couple of segments, looks like something's going on with that. I understand they're going to try to present this to a grand jury there, but I also understand that they don't need one. They should have made an arrest and can make an arrest right away, but don't know what's going to happen. Again, your support's needed, however you can provide it to that family, because were it not for that video, this thing would have been brushed under the rug. Also understand there's something going on in Indianapolis where police shot a brother there, another unarmed brother in the back. And I don't know too much about the details on that, but needless to say, the seriousness of our situation here in terms of criminal justice is still monumental and still quite a hurdle to get over. We've been dealing with it literally for centuries. And the gentleman who I'm about to introduce actually is on the front line and has been on the front line for dealing with police brutality and criminal justice reform here in Philadelphia and perhaps nationally. But he is a good buddy, and his name is Gabriel Bryant. Gabe is younger than me, but nonetheless, he's a wise soul, and he's really done so much in terms of social justice. He's somebody I'm very proud of, very proud to call a friend of mine, and we go back now about 15, 16 years. So without further ado, let me introduce Gabriel Bryant. Gabe, how you doing? Good evening.
Hey, Rob, how you doing?
All right, man. Gabe, I just gave a really abridged version of some of your background, but I know there's been quite a bit more that you've done and been about. So, your schooling and all. And you're from New York originally, right?
Yes, born and raised in Brooklyn. Mm-hmm. My family, for the most part, is still there.
Yeah.
But I've been in Philadelphia now almost 20 years.
Yeah. So tell us about, again, give us some background on after you left New York, what brought you to Philly, and how did you get into, becoming a social justice activist?
Sure. I actually went to Penn State University for undergrad, mm-hmm. and after graduating, like many folks, I tried to look for opportunities for employment, and I was doing a massive search. And actually, I had family in Philadelphia, always have. Mm-hmm. At the time, my grandmother was here. I have aunts, uncles, cousins here. So an opportunity came in Philadelphia, and I said, okay, let's try Philadelphia to live. Mm-hmm. And I've actually been here since. Mm-hmm. And, I've kind of developed my network and built my village and built my circles here, mm-hmm. While also visiting back to New York, mm-hmm. Obviously every few months to see family. I think what got me first involved in the work of social justice and trying to be out here working for the people, as they say, was my college experience. For folks who are familiar with Penn State University, it's in State College, Pennsylvania, really in the center of the state. Mm-hmm. And, it's also what people don't know is that it's the at the time it was the third highest in the country for hate groups.
Mm.
You know, which is interesting because people don't think about, you know, northern states, quote unquote, or northern cities having this. People think about the South. But at the time, Pennsylvania was ripe with hate groups, and just my college experience showed me and many other students that, you know, as a student of color, you know, whether you're from New York like myself, or Philadelphia, or Pittsburgh, or, you know, Baltimore. I have friends from D.C. while in college.
Sure.
There was a unique experience of, you know, trying to figure out ways to navigate, you know, challenges around racism, and really being in a place that really didn't have too many other folks of color. And I became a student organizer, not only with student government, but also with the Black Caucus. And that kind of formed my ideas and perspective.
And what year did you come out of Penn State?
Yeah, I left, graduated in 2001.
Oh, really?
And so, yeah. So I graduated that year, that May, and I was in Philly by that August.
I was trying to remember how I met you, and I can't for the life of me, but I know, I can't really, but I know that, before we go on, let me, can you say a thing or two about, there's this, a lot of us have been dealing with tragedy for the, of course, our brother, Milt McGriff passed away recently.
Yeah, sure.
And many others, friends of mine anyway, have passed over the few years, and especially with this coronavirus thing, it's been crazy. But this sister Davina, I don't think I'm saying her name right, but could you say a word or two about her who passed just recently?
Sure. Yeah, Sister Davine.
Davine,
yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, she. I first met Davine early 2000s when she was performing. She would do poetry. She loved to dance, particularly to, you know, Afro house music and Afrobeat. I also met her because she did a lot of work in West Philadelphia in terms of work around political prisoners.
Okay.
And yeah, so she knew a lot of the folks that were involved in the work around MOVE. And so she knew, like, you know, Ramona Africa, Ham Africa. So a lot of the work that was done in the early 2000s, she certainly was a part of, along with many others. So I knew her both as, you know, a activist in that regard, but also as far as with her art. And she was very supportive of many on the art scene with very conscious poetry, spoken word. She was an amazing poet, and she really also was supportive of other artists. And what was great about her was that she really was just a beacon of light. I mean, she really was so positive as a person. She always tried to support other artists and other activists in their work. And she really was just, I mean, she gave her all. And so she definitely will be missed, because even though she had left Philadelphia some time ago, you know, she still would tap in and check in with folks, and, you know, her energy was always sort of felt. And she really left a mark even when she left. So, it was definitely so sudden, unexpected to hear her loss, but she really made a mark here in Philadelphia.
Yeah, I would see her at, I know I've seen her perform at least 2 or 3 times at different events. Someone had posted something and mentioned the Rotunda, and I know I had seen her there once or twice, and I was always amazed at how talented she was, but I never really got to know her personally, except hi and goodbye, and like I said, she would travel in some of the circles I would pass through, but never really spent any time. But it was obvious from the posts that I read that she was really well loved and had influenced and impacted a lot of people, inspired a lot of people. But to get back to, I was trying to remember how we met, and like I said, I can't recall, but it was around and I mentioned Milt McGriff, but it was around that event, that project rather, that he spearheaded, called the Year of Black Presence, if I'm not mistaken. And
okay, yes,
I somehow had gotten your name from somebody, and you were doing things up at Temple. You never attended Temple, though, right?
No, no.
Yeah, you were affiliated with some folks there. And anyway, long story short, next thing I knew, you had like 100 people ready to go down to D.C. to talk.
We had a whole army.
Yeah. To go down to D.C. and
I remember that.
talk about reparations. Yeah, well, that was our first encounter or project. And then I also remember one time we went to Pittsburgh together to I don't even remember what that was about, but exactly. But it was a great time, and again, it's one of the things that I can reflect on in terms of why you have been just somebody I've been so proud of, and I follow much of what you do. I mentioned to you earlier today when we were talking about just what we might chat about, but some of the things you're proud of or had been successful at in terms of social justice and social activism. So can you comment on that?
Yeah, well, first of all, just real quick, back to Milton. I just want to say, again, rest in peace and power to our brother Milt McGriff. He was a dynamic man who I really was inspired by, and he was somebody who really just took a hold of me in the same way that you did, just as far as being around and kind of, teaching a different guy like myself just some of the twists and turns of his work, of his movement, and really being a positive force in that regard. I'm always going to miss Milt. And of course, later on, when he began writing his book and his time meeting him at the Celebration of Black Writing, I mean, he's just a great guy, and he definitely will be missed as well. What started my work, honestly, man, was that as a student, I helped to found an organization called Sankofa Community Empowerment.
Right. I remember that.
Exactly. Yeah. So Sankofa obviously founded because we all saw Haile Gerema's film, the great director and filmmaker out of Howard University, Haile Gerema, and we saw Sankofa as a college student, and we were so just really inspired, but really empowered by what the messages were in that film. And we created a space for students to organize at Penn State because of what was going on campus and in the neighborhoods and back home. So when we graduated, one of the terms that we had, some of our core organizers, we had a term called, don't be a rug. And what a rug was revolutionary until graduation. Which, for people that understand the politics of being an activist on campus, that's what tends to happen. And we didn't want to be a rug. Rugs get stepped on, rugs get walked over, and we wanted to figure out ways to continue our work. And so, you speak of Temple University, the first thing I did was, again, I'm 22 years old. I actually reached out to actually every college in town. It just so happens that Temple was the one that responded. What I did was I reached out to all the Black caucuses, BSUs, and said, hey, I'm Gabe. I'm nobody really at this point, but I was like, hey, I'm Gabe. I want to connect and have this program that might, inspire you, empower you the same way that it did for me. And I'll never forget that it was the folks at the Black Action Society at Temple that responded. And we began having meetings at Temple that March of 2002. And we went on from there. And so to hear your question about what am I most proud of, that entity of building out Sankofa Community Empowerment through Temple University, which was an opportunity for us to build leadership development and really kind of create a cross-section of leadership between the campus and the surrounding community. It's fantastic because for many folks, particularly at Temple, it's uniquely,
Gabe.
Yes. Hello?
Gabe, just hold on. We're going to take a quick break and then come back.
Okay.